Okay, what is operating? This is something that we argue all the time, and every time there's an appeal taken up, it seems like the case law comes back much worse for us. But this is a definition that is, or a term that is not defined in Texas. And according to, well, actually, let me take a step back. There is a definition. It is not used, and the courts of appeals have recommended that and stated that it is error to define the term operate in a jury charge. In this case, Kirsch v. State, they found it to be error to define the term operating. So at the bottom, it says, while courts have steered clear of defining what operating is in a jury charge, that they, in 724.001, it does define operate to mean to drive or to be in actual control of a motor vehicle or watercraft. But we don't put it in a jury charge, and we let the juries apply a plain meaning to the word. So this is something that's open for argument in every trial. What was operating? You don't have to be actually driving your car. No one has to see you driving. They just have to prove that you were operating your motor vehicle while you're intoxicated at some point. And there's different ways they can do that. So what's a motor vehicle? In the penal code, they say that a motor vehicle is going to be defined, and we're going to use the definition as defined in Texas Penal Code 32.34. So here's the definition. It means a device in, on, or by which a person or property is or may be transported or drawn on a highway, except a device used exclusively on stationary rails or tracks. So what does that mean? That means that this guy who is conducting a train, drinking his Sky vodka, cannot be arrested for DWI because this is a device used exclusively on stationary rails or tracks. However, we saw that incident. I don't know if everybody remembers when you're watching this, but the train came off the tracks, and a crazy train engineer in New York was trying to ram his train into the Navy medical ship that was in the New York harbor. I don't know how he thought he was going to make it 200 yards with no tracks, but that's something to think about. If he was intoxicated and was able to cause damage by driving that train off the tracks, that might take it out of the definition, and he might be charged with DWI. But so anyway, here's a funny picture showing that you could have a drunk train engineer on the tracks, and that's not DWI. Okay, what is a public place? A lot of times people say, hey, I was in my driveway, I was at home, I was in my gated apartment community. Problem is that the Court of Appeals have determined that can be a public place. And what it comes down to is looking at the amount of access that the public has to that area. So it's any place to which the public or a substantial group of the public has access. There's been some argument about, well, what is substantial group? If only 2 or 3 people can get in, is that really a substantial group? So this is a pretty heavily litigated area. If you have a private club and there's a security man at the gate or a woman at the gate, is that something that could still be a public place if you have a parking garage there with 200 cars in it? It's open for argument, but public place covers a lot of places that you would normally think are not public. This is not a public place. It's about one of the only areas where there's a case that states, a country road could be a public place if a substantial amount of the public has access to it. Now, if you're on your ranch and you've got it closed up, I think you're good. I don't think that they could get you for driving while intoxicated on that dirt road if nobody can get to it other than you. So here's some examples of public places that there is case law surrounding. Talking about how a parking lot could be a public place, even a gated community. There's gates in a lot of apartment and condominium communities these days. They can be a public place, and we are handling cases right now where a person was actually in their parking garage behind a pretty heavy security system where the officers could not even get in We see the video of the officers trying to get in, and they can't without a code or by having somebody let them in. And there's a big metal curtain gate that comes down. So they still say that the person was in a public place and still arrested for DWI. Military bases, a closed park, a boat marina. And so the last one, driveway, is interesting. If a person sees you driving erratically or something that might lead them to believe you were driving while intoxicated, they can call the police. And if you pull into your driveway and turn off the key, a police officer can still approach you even though you're on your private property in your driveway. I mean, it's still a place that a substantial portion of the public could have access to. But even if they didn't see you driving, they can still investigate and potentially arrest you for DWI.